Hunter Greene has elbow discomfort, and that could change just about everything. We're going to talk to John Sadak about it on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country, and we thank you for helping us make that happen. Hi, I'm Jeff. He's Steve, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have been podcasting about this team for a combined 16 seasons. We're glad that you're alongside us here today. We have with us the voice of the Reds on Reds.tv, John Sadak, and he will tell us about the new innovations of Reds.tv later on in today's show. In just a few minutes, we'll talk about why it is Matt McLain's job to lose the #2 spot in the Cincinnati Reds lineup come opening day. But we will begin with the news of the day, that is Hunter Greene's elbow stiffness and the uncertainty surrounding that on today's Locked On Reds podcast. That is brought to you by MLB The Show 26. Visit MLBtheshow.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDON to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. Pre-order now, available March 17th on PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Rated E for everyone. And joining us from Goodyear is the voice of the Reds on television, John Sadak. John, what you got for us?
I have everything. I am feeling so high on this team right now. Great to be with you guys. It feels like baseball when I see your smiling faces. And I got to tell you, I might just be drinking the Kool-Aid. I've only been here for a little less than a week. I entered Arizona optimistic about the Reds, and I'm feeling even better about them after seeing these guys for a few days.
You're undefeated at not knowing the talking points and yet launching right into them, John. I love that. That's why you're a professional, because that is where I wanted to start. Things are different this offseason. The Reds handled this offseason differently. Ownership acted differently. The front office was able to operate differently. And Tito is saying different things. Tito is saying it is time to go. He is no longer acting like I'm the manager of this scrappy gang that's way ahead of where they're supposed to be. And he seems to be operating with a sense of urgency. Now, you take all of those pieces and you bring them together, and I have an optimism that I haven't had in a while. And that's saying something on this show, John, because we seem to feed in the optimism around here, especially Jeff Carr over there. We like to try and find the silver linings. But finally, we have a team where Jeff and I aren't looking at them on paper as we head towards opening day and having to do that thing, right, John, where we're like, if you squint and you turn your head sideways, you can see them being good. No. That's not this team. This team looks built to compete for this division, looks built to win. You've been there a week now. How is the energy in the locker room? Is it as it's being reported by the beat guys? How is the team?
It's through the roof. And it's not that youthful exuberance, not to say they don't have that at all, but it's more of a connected confidence with this group. I think there's a greater sense of identity among everyone. And I think part of the blunt reality is, so a common thing that happened for me as I switched from baseball to football, and I saw faces from that world in my life that I hadn't seen in a while. They all opened with, man, you must be on cloud nine. What a great year for the Reds. And my honest answer was, it was an okay year. It was good. They made the playoffs. That is, yes, a giant step. But part of the reason they made the playoffs is the Mets were horrendous for 2.5 months. They were wanting at times scoring. Their pitching took a big step forward. I felt great confidence in the rotation. I thought the bullpen was better than people gave it credit for, particularly Santillan and Pagan. Connor Phillips felt like some found money down that stretch. But, they lost a lot of extra inning games, a lot of close games, and it came down to the final day of the season. And to me, their biggest needs this offseason, the #1 need was power, ideally right-handed corner power. Probably perfect world would have been an outfielder. And they go and get Eugenio Suárez, who we know and love, is a great dude, knows a lot of these guys, is a tremendous teammate, and is one of the elite power hitters in the game yet again. They addressed that need directly. I love the bullpen ads. I like Brock Burke a lot and his versatility left-right. He's a bit of a quirky dude with a deceptive delivery, and I love that. I really like Pierce Johnson. I've liked watching him in other uniforms over the years, and that connectedness he already had with Pagan that I did not know about until he became a Red, I think enhances it all the more. I like Caleb Ferguson. I like there's more right-left balance. There's tremendous starting depth with all the injured arms that are coming back. And to me, if you took last year's Reds team and you scored 10% more, and one power threat, then it's not a last day of the season thing. They're a playoff team, and it's more about seeding. And I think there's greater confidence going into a postseason series. I am with you. And if McLain can become 30% of what he was in 23, let alone what we've seen so far in spring training, which looks even better than 23 Matt McLain. If Spencer Steer could be healthy, because he was arguably the Reds' second best hitter from about late May on, and probably should not have been there at the start of last season. I saw him this morning. He feels great. He looks great. He's going to play second base today for the first time in a spring game. I am so high on this Reds team right now.
So with that, and of course, we have the news that buoyed us on Wednesday and tried to kill our optimism a little bit. It sounds as though that hasn't affected you a whole lot when it comes to Hunter Greene. And I know that they're still trying to figure out the exact details when it comes to his elbow. There is stiffness. There is no reported UCL damage as of yet, though he has 2 opinions set up in the next coming week. When it comes to how the roster moves around him, they do have a lot of pitching depth, but for the fact that the ace is the guy that's going through all of this, does that affect your optimism at all? Because we're talking about a team that we think could compete for the NL Central very easily with Hunter Greene. Does that change without him?
No. I mean, first of all, we don't know what the full status is yet. But I just think it's kind of a granted known in today's game. Pitcher's going down. You don't want it to be hard, but a pitcher's going down almost every spring training everywhere. It's probably multiple guys. And at some point during the year, it's really the aggregate innings. I think it makes the good bad about this Reds group right now is there's going to be a lot of tough decisions, assuming health and productivity by the end of camp. And I mean that on a relative level, not that there's no health issues whatsoever, but there's still enough guys competing for spots. If you lost him for the year, yeah, it's an impact. I mean, when he is healthy and doing what he's capable of, he's among the elite pitchers in the game. He's got incredible stuff. And we have seen him for up to 2 months at a time deliver at a high level. And that is also another fair question mark on this Reds team, is that even last year, as the starting pitching took major strides, and it did, it became definitively a top 10, possibly a top 5 rotation in the game.
I agree with that.
Still, none of these core guys have gone, 200 innings and pitched entire seasons. Brady Singer's the guy who led them in innings at just south of 170 and made 32 starts and was available every day. And he was a trade add-on as a more veteran player. And that's fair. Like you hope and think that those guys can take more steps to that end. But I think there's so much depth. One of the question marks, and this is my own personal speculation, this comes with no inside knowledge. We saw what Chase Burns could do in relief. I would wonder about him as a reliever with this team. But if Hunter is sidelined for the season start, and if you just start doing math, I mean, if he's going to get 2 opinions, we're recording this on Wednesday, the 4th, and he's going to have 2 opinions for the earliest he could realistically throw. I think the second opinion is either Monday, Tuesday next week. He wouldn't resume throwing until then. It could make the math wonky to begin the year in the rotation on that first turn. But yeah, it can have an impact. He's a great arm, but I think there are so many other options that assuredly would have to pitch, even if everyone was whole, because someone else is going to get hurt or hit an innings threshold. And that's the wrinkle with some of these guys, the youngest arms that are coming back from major injury, like Williamson, like Aguilar. They're probably going to have thresholds, and Rhett Lauder, there's probably going to be an innings cap on them that if they're healthy and productive, they would hit at some point during the year.
I love to hear you talking about that, because Jeff and I have been talking about it this whole offseason about how to plug and play these starting pitchers to get everybody to the end of the season and available for a postseason run, depending on what you need. Before you logged on today, I had told Jeff, I am expecting on my pencil sheet over here, I have Hunter Greene down for 25 starts in 2026. That's kind of was my number. And that means he misses about 7 starts. And if he misses the first 7 or the middle 7, I don't care, as long as we get those 25 starts out of him. So I hope that now they pin this down and get him ready. And then once he's ready, he's ready. He said something that piqued my interest, though, John. He said that this is something that was going on last season, that he was feeling at the end of last season, that he pushed through it. And when he got to Goodyear and fired things back up, he still felt it. I'm going to Watergate you right now. What did we know and when did we know it? Because I don't remember hearing at all towards the playoff run that Hunter Greene had elbow discomfort.
Yeah, I did not either. And so that was news to me. That came with the writers in the later stage of the morning. So I only read those quotes. I read them on Charlie's chalkboard. I think the man does awesome work.
That's where we got him to.
Subscribe to that Substack. Yep.
Covers
Absolutely.
the Reds so well. Yeah, and that he apparently had an injection he had shared with the beat guys as well. That was all news to me. I did not know that at all. So who knew what, when? I mean, obviously Hunter did, but I'm not sure. I did not. That was a little surprising. But that's where I'm just hoping for, as the imaging comes up with whatever's going on currently and he gets his 2 opinions, that we're in a best case scenario and it's minimal time missed and he can still be effective. In some ways, that's actually encouraging, because if he pitched with it already and there's no existing damage and they don't feel that it's a precursor to anything, then that should mean there's greater safety in pitching, because I think most pitchers would tell you they got something going on almost all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I imagine that if the 2 evaluations come back and just say, this is just how you're going to feel, Hunter would feel more confident in letting it rip.
Yes.
But there's probably some apprehension right now. And I'm interested to see how this plays out. I know this, the Reds' best version of themselves in 2026 has Hunter Greene as the ace of this rotation. And hopefully he is back sooner than later, giving us those 25 starts. But let's move away from the negative that is the Hunter elbow injury and get into the positive that is Matt McLain's resurgence and his seemingly grasp on the number 2 spot in the lineup. We've got that coming up next.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups. You can even look at mid-major games, which I love a good mid-major matchup. And you can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. You can even check out different odds. I mean, you got the Bearcats finishing up the regular season. The Miami Redhawks are looking to finish their regular season undefeated on the road against Ohio. All of that is over on FanDuel. Go safe, go bold, or ride with the team that you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, and all of the above, so that you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. You're really taking aim at the right person. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of today's podcast will get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status that it deserves over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on today's show. Indeed.com/podcast. In terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
Parlay profit boost. Say that 3 times fast. Good job, Jeff Carr. You know, you already make this team your life each and every day. Step it up a level, everydayers. Get in on Locked On's audio ad-free feed. The Everydayer Club lives over there. $5 a month, $50 a year gets you ad-free Locked On Reds. The link for that is super easy. LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer. The link for the Everydayer Club down in the show description. Check that out today. All right, Jeff. All right, John, let's get into some positive stuff that's going on. John, you hit on it a little bit there in the beginning, talking a little bit about Matt McLain, talking a little bit about Spencer Steer. There are guys that did not have the years that we expected from them in 2025. And a lot of that was due to injury. In Matt McLain's case, coming back from a shoulder injury that saw him miss an entire year. We've got Spencer Steer coming back from a shoulder injury that he probably should not have played through, but did because the team really didn't have anybody else and they needed somebody to DH. So Spencer raised his hand, well, at least with his good arm. Anyway, he did. So we've got these guys back and looking healthy, looking good. Let's start with Matt McLain, because there was some talk last year, not from this guy, but from other guys that wanted to send Matt McLain down at one point because his struggles were so real. And I get the inclination that people wanted to send him down and let him work on things and get confident. I just didn't feel like the Reds had anybody else. So he had to struggle through it at the major league level. Now we head into a new year. He looks much more like the guy that the Reds called up 2 years ago that was able to come in like gangbusters and just be a force in this lineup, be a force in the middle of the infield, be a force for this team. He looks much more like that guy. And the Reds need him to be that guy if they're going to go in 2026, if they're going to get that run scoring up. What I'm seeing so far, John, Matt looks like he is locked and loaded and ready to go.
I would totally agree. I spoke with him this morning. And I asked him about the weight that he had put on. I wanted to confirm that that was accurate. He said, yeah, it's about 15 pounds. And he shared that it was something that he's always struggled with. He's had a hard time putting on weight. And I think the assumption is because his metabolism was always so crazy, and he's so shredded all the time. He said, yeah, I did have to eat a lot more, but it was the first time that combined with lifting, which he's always done, has actually made him even stronger and bigger. Jim Day did a hit during the telecast that I followed up with Matt on, that he's using a slightly longer bat. It's only a quarter inch longer. It is a little lighter. He shared that he has used that size bat before. He's volleyed back and forth. And I saw Barry Larkin the other day, and Matt was one of the first names that Lark brought up on his own. And he talked about, and then I followed up with Matt, and he said, yeah, that's spot on. He's trying to stay more closed, trying to keep that shoulder turned in a little bit more. And the real focus, it's cliche, but it's true. And it's something that Lark talks about all the time. He's focusing on driving that ball to right center. And then so as mistakes come more middle in, he can turn on them and pull them. And we saw that on full display with his homers to both fields in the game a couple of days ago. He looks terrific. I mean, the truth is he's so good defensively at second base. Even with his way below expected production at the plate last year, he was a net positive for the Reds. But part of the brutal reality is they need a little more offense. And I think he is the ideal two-hole hitter for this team if he can do it. And the early returns in spring are excellent. The lull is going to come. He's going to have a stretch where that bottoms out to some extent. But really see him do this in the regular year. And hopefully the 23 Matt McLain is the real Matt McLain. And that's who the Reds get this coming year. If he's 30% better than he was last year, I think this team is so much better. And I also think you touched on the shoulder. He now has a teammate who is probably a perfect example of how significant a shoulder injury is. Look at what happened to Eugenio Suárez after his shoulder. And every time he was asked about the shoulder, he said, it feels fine. And I believe him. He was telling the truth. It felt fine. But there's a difference between feels fine and firing those quick twitch muscles and making contact in a big league game. Right? It's something Joey Votto battled after his surgery late in his career, and then he tried to run it back again at Toronto. And even he said in one of those late press conferences in his Reds time, I don't know if I'm old or it's the injury or it's both. It's a significant injury. Edwin Arroyo went through the same thing. It usually takes about a year until you're whole. And so this is about a year for Matt McLain after missing an entire season as well. The best version of the Reds offensively has McLain productive and ideally batting second.
Just real quick to follow up on that, John. We also heard among the changes made, and that's interesting with the bat and the changes that he made there. We also heard they've moved him a little bit closer to the plate. They're trying to take away that low and away that he really struggled with last season. And that seems to be working as well.
So he tried that at the start of spring and felt very uncomfortable being that much closer to the plate. That is something that a lot of our TV analysts had brought up as an idea on air during the course of last year as well. He said when he stood that much closer to the plate, he felt like the pitcher was almost behind him and it felt grossly uncomfortable. So he moved back to that same spot. But the combination of having that extra just quarter inch on the bat, whatever that does for him mentally, and staying more closed and being focused on covering those pitches away so far seems to have done it. But the league adjusts and the hitter adjusts and the league adjusts. So could that still be part of the formula ultimately? Maybe. But he did try that at the start of spring. And from what we've heard so far, the initial results with that were too much discomfort to be an everyday thing.
I think it's interesting that the comfort and confidence are the things that are the centerpiece with his offseason, with his spring, because there isn't a column, at least last I looked, on Baseball Reference for that. And so you really can't quantify it, but is probably the most important part of a hitter's game, because you have to know that you can step into the box and hit whatever pitch is coming from you, whether it's from a AA guy that you're seeing in spring training, or it's September and you're facing the Dodgers closer, like whoever that might be. You've got to have that confidence. That's something the Cowboys said when in relation to the size of the bat and all that stuff. It's not necessarily that he's got himself, it's not like he's golfing and he's playing with a top flight as opposed to a tailor-made. It's just, the confidence that he has in what he is doing at the plate each and every time up. And we see that in spring training. He just looks like everything is coming to him and he is able to handle it exactly how he wants to handle it. And that's not something we saw at any point in 2025.
I would totally agree. I think the same is true of pitchers, trying to repeat mechanics. And so that's something that, as I've talked to some Reds here at spring, that I'm hearing more this year than I have in other recent years, that teammates are pointing things out about teammates that they're seeing. Like, hey, this looks a little different. I'm seeing this in you right now. And so the element that you would normally rely more on exclusively coaches or video, there's enough experience, not only on the field, but experience together and knowing each other, that they're trying to help each other, pointing out things like that. And I would also add, with the advent of ABS, if I had to guess the Reds hitters, they're going to benefit the most from this, I think it's Matt McLain, Ellie De La Cruz, and somewhat surprisingly, after I looked up the info, I would not have guessed this, Eugenio Suárez was actually among the leaders in baseball for pitches that were true balls out of the zone called strikes against him.
Did not know that. That's interesting, though. And like you talk about that relationship that the players have because they're more used to each other. That was the thing that struck me and Steve the most about Reds Fest, is that anybody that was talking about Matt McLain as the leader of this ball club. And I think that there are so many folks that watched this team last year and saw his struggles and would think that that is just, I'm trying to think of a better word than poppycock, but for some reason poppycock is what's coming to my mind. It's ridiculous to people to think that Matt McLain is a leader after struggling the way that he did last year. But there is not a soul that had a microphone at Reds Fest that would agree with a fan that says, oh no, Matt McLain's not a leader because he struggled. They're like, no, Matt McLain is like probably the guy with the C on his chest at the end of the day when it comes to this roster.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great leadership on this team, but I do think he is an adored part of it. He's a very funny dude. He likes to give a lot of guff to people in a friendly, teammate kind of way. He's the other thing I would also add is when you mentioned Red Fest, it kind of clicked in my head again. So I hosted a Q&A with him at Reds Fest, and he was asked by a fan at one point, what are your biggest focuses? What are you thinking coming into the year? And something that he volunteered then is that when he diagnosed his 2025 season, he thought he put himself behind in the count too often, taking hittable strikes. And he wants to be more selectively aggressive earlier in counts, at least at the season start. And then, inevitably the league will probably adjust and he'll adjust. But that's another wrinkle that I think we've seen some in spring, limited number of ABs, that I would be looking for at the start of the regular season. Look for him to ambush a first, second pitch and try to do some damage with it.
Speaking of things that we've seen limited in spring, we've seen Reds TV, and we're going to get to see it a lot more this season. I'm very excited to see the differences because there have been some intriguing innovations for other teams. And I know that you had mentioned that you're excited about what's coming for us. We're going to talk about those coming up next. And today I'm thrilled to be talking about our sponsor, MLB The Show 26. The greatest game in baseball is back with its newest installment, and baseball fans are going to have a hard time pulling themselves away from this game. They've made so many great updates when it comes to Road to the Show. You can really feel like you're immersing yourself in the process of becoming a big leaguer. If you're like me and you've always wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, though I learned early on that wasn't going to happen, MLB The Show 26 will give you that next chance to get it done. If you're a gamer, a baseball fan, or you just want to enjoy America's pastime in a new and exciting way, you're going to love MLB The Show 26. Play as your favorite team and franchise players and see if you have what it takes to win your own World Series. Visit MLBtheshow.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDON to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. Internet connection is required. Pre-order now. Available March 17th on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch. Rated E for everyone. If you can't watch the show, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there, and that's where the ad-free feed lives. You can join the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club by going to lockedonreds.supercast.com to learn more. All right, John, with this new innovation of Reds.tv here this season and how everything is moving, it looks like it's going to be a little bit easier for local folks to watch the games. There's no blackouts when it comes to the local area. Sorry, Steve, Hawaii doesn't include that. But there is going to be a lot of new things with each broadcast. And I know that you had mentioned briefly on the broadcast the other day that you are excited about some of the things coming. What is the thing that excites you the most about this year's changes?
I would say the support that you get from Major League Baseball is exceptional. A lot of the research stuff. I mean, we're going to have somebody on Slack during the game that can do some extra digging. So Joel Luckup does a fantastic job with us in the booth, and now we have like another set of hands that can find something in a moment that can, really do some digging on things that are interesting. I just overall love the look too. I just think the MLB Network score bug and all that is just terrific. I think it's sensational. The wire cam is pretty cool. We saw a taste of it. We did have it in some parks last year, but now that's going to be a regular thing at all the home games and will also be at all the road MLB.TV teams. And that's, I think, now 13 others beyond the Reds. Of the 30 are MLB.TV teams. I think that helps the most when it's ball in play, runners in motion. So ideally you have like a first and third situation, ball goes in the right field corner, give you that, eye in the sky kind of view beyond the traditional high home that can move with the ball and the runners and gives you a real sense of the speed the runners are working with, the decision making of the entire field defensively. I think it's really sharp. There are also going to be these little fun facts that come up during the game. There's a chime distinctive to it that Pavlovian we're going to all have a response to as we hear, and it'll come up in the lower left corner of the screen. I think that's really neat. But I'm looking forward to it. We had dinner with the folks that are now behind the scenes making all that stuff happen and come up with all the toys. And there's the potential for even more toys, some of which I don't know all of yet. So one little behind the curtain thing that I learned this spring, I never knew before. So the fields at Salt River apparently are where they test all the new stuff that can happen, both on the air and also things like the ABS system and all the testing that is done before it gets integrated into a major league game first gets handled there. And I thought that's really cool because it makes sense to be able to do that, but I had no idea where or when they would. It apparently is out here in Arizona.
That tracks because Salt River is one of the prettiest ballparks in the greater Phoenix area. If you've not been, you should definitely go check that out. I'm also excited about the wire cam, just if for nothing else that we finally can see into that right field corner that you never get when you've got the high home shot. You can never see what's going on down there in the right field corner. So I love that. I want to stick with the broadcast for just a minute, John. We saw last year some changes, just not so much in the lineup of you guys that are telling us about the Reds games, but just where everybody was working. More of the same this year. Are we running it back? Is it going to be primarily Tommy and Chris over on the radio side with you, Barry, and Cowboy on the TV side?
Well, it'll still be Cowboy will be on the home radio and then be doing most of the road TV. And then, and then Barry will do I think, all of the home games on TV. Chris will still do some games on TV, mostly on the road. Cowboy will have to miss a handful of games here and there. He's being inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. He also was the Ohio State Broadcaster of the Year. He's going to go to the NSMA Awards. And he does take some time for his family as well. But yeah, that'll be very similar to last year, the very same core crew. The other differences will come on pre and post. So the home games will still have BG and Sam pretty much all those games at the desk and celebrating with the fans after games and Reds wins. But on the road, the post-game show will be done mostly from the booth. So it'll be a combination of me and Cowboy and Jim Day, and it'll depend some upon how Jim gets Tito or other players, or, Jim might be hosting segments. Cowboy and I may be hosting segments. So it'll be a slightly shorter post-game show for those road games. But otherwise, yes, very much similar in kind to what happened last year.
I love that wire cam too, thinking about that for double steals. I don't necessarily know if live it'll be that way, but like the replays of double.
Yeah.
I want to see the wire cam shot of Ellie and McLain doing a double steal. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, John, we've reached our 30-minute time. I appreciate you so much for the time you give us, and not only your friendship to us and to me personally, the number of times you've sat down and talked shop with me, people would be astounded. But just your friendship to the greater Reds community. People don't tell you enough. What you've done since you've come to town has been stellar. And it's impactful. And so many people, you're in their living rooms every night. And I know that the greater Tri-State area considers you a friend. And I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the work you do. I appreciate the mentorship and the friendship. And I just want to thank you for that while I have a second. And then before we let you get out of here, you're one of the hardest working men in show business. In addition to having that amazing hairstyle that you have, you've got a lot going on. And I want to just give you a quick second to kind of tell people where to find you as they're waiting to get their baseball fix. You're on the air a lot between now and opening day.
Yeah, it's a pretty good amount of travel. And thank you very much. I'm glad to hold this seat for however long the Reds and our rights holder employers will let me have it. It's a real glory to be able to do this. I love baseball and I love the Reds and I love this chance. I'll have Big 12 hoops on Friday. I'll have West Virginia, Central Florida. It'll be senior day for the Mountaineers. Then I come back out here to Arizona. We have a game on Sunday on Reds TV. Then I'm home for a day to pack. Back out west to Vegas. I'm doing the Mountain West on CBS Sports Network. The first two quarterfinals, both semifinals. Then home for a couple of days. I'll be in Tampa for the NCAA tournament, first, second rounds on radio. And I'll be with the former Hoosiers head coach, Tom Crean. It'll be our second time together down in Tampa. And then I'll be back in Cincy and ready for the greatest opening day in baseball. And I can't wait to get it going. I mean, I was so excited for my first season because it was my first season, right? Mm-hmm. I think this is the most hyped I've ever been for a Red season because I feel like they have the building blocks to take that step and to really try to compete for a division title, not just make the playoffs, do damage in the playoffs, win games, win series in the playoffs. I think they are right there.
I 100% agree with you. And I would ask, and as much to the chagrin of any producers that they may have, keep up all the Star Wars, Office, and Always Sunny in Philadelphia references on the broadcast because I love every single one of them.
I saw your Walker in the background in the commercial. That was awesome.
Yes, absolutely, man. My wife, she rolled her eyes, but hey, it was a great Christmas gift. I appreciated it. But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. You can get us every single day in YouTube or on your audio feed, everywhere that you go. Make sure you subscribe. But we will be with you tomorrow as we discuss more expectations for the 2026 season. But as for John, Steve, and myself, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Ooh, damage in the playoffs. I love that.
Let's do it.